Sorry, we got it. The microphone's over here. Yeah, just raise your hand, and the monitor will supply the microphone.
Thank you. Howard Winston from Cincinnati, Ohio. One question. Are you concerned about the rising valuations on the NASDAQ market where companies trade at multiples of revenues instead of multiples of earnings?
The rising value of what did you say?
The NASDAQ market.
Oh.
Where they traded 10 times revenues or more, 30 times revenues instead of 10 times earnings.
Yeah. Well, we don't pay much attention to that because throughout the careers Charlie and I have had in investing, there have always been hundreds of cases or thousands of cases of things that are ridiculously priced and phony stock promotions and the gullible being led into to believe in things that just can't come true. So that's always gone on. It always will go on, and it doesn't make any difference to us. I mean, we are not trying to predict markets. We never will try and predict markets. We're trying to find wonderful businesses, and the fact that a part of the market is kind of screwy, that's unimportant to us. We tried a few times shorting some of those things in our innocence of youth, and it's very tough to make money shorting even the obvious frauds, and there are some obvious frauds. And it really is. It's not so tough to find the obvious frauds, and it's not tough to be right over 10 years, but it's very tough to make money being short them. Although we tried a few times way back. We don't look at indicia from stocks in general or from PEs or price sales ratios or what other things are doing. We really just focus on businesses. We don't care if there's a stock market. I mean, would we want to own Coca-Cola, the 8% we own of Coca-Cola, the 11% of Gillette, if they said we're just going to delist the stock and we're never going to, we'll open it again in 20 years. It's fine with us, and then if it goes down on the news, we'll buy more of it. So we care about what the business does. Yeah. Norton, why don't you give him the microphone there?
Thank you, Warren, for including me. out of order.
It's good to have you here. Norton represents a family that came in 1956. Yeah, that joined up with the partnership and been with us ever since.
Very, very fortunate connection.
Both ways, Norton, both ways.
And,
careful, Norton. We don't want you mobbed on the way out.
But I might say that it all began with my father discovering, thanks to a professor of finance that was also at the University of Oklahoma, Ben Graham back in 1940. And then later, when Ben Graham was about to retire, we were trying to find his protege. And clearly that was Warren, and so he belongs to that long tradition. But the question I wanted to ask was, you've mentioned the very strong companies that Berkshire has that are really international companies like Coca-Cola and the Gillette. But are you considering, or have you ever thought of considering the foreign companies that are undervalued, or have you for some reason not included that in your universe of companies to consider?
We've looked at companies domiciled in other countries, and we continue to look at companies domiciled in other countries. We wouldn't, we're happy for the U.S. and for Atlanta that Coca-Cola is domiciled in Atlanta, but would we pass on it if it happened to be domiciled in England? No, we'd love it if it were domiciled in England too. And we feel that the important thing is the business, not the domicile, although we're more familiar in a general way with domestic companies that are domiciled here, although they may make their money internationally. And we feel a tiny bit more comfortable, but for just a tiny bit, in terms of understanding the nuances of taxes and politics and shareholder governance and all of that, in something where we've been reading and thinking about it daily than someplace where we've had a little less experience. But we would love to find a wonderful business that is domiciled in any one of 30 or so countries around the world. We look some. We don't look as hard as we look at domestic companies. We're not as familiar with them, but I have read hundreds of annual reports of companies spread around the world, and we've owned a few, just a couple. They're usually not as big, so just getting the kind of money in many cases is more of a problem. But some of them are big, and we do not have such a surplus of ideas that we can afford to ignore any possibilities. And if we can find something with a market cap, probably of at least $5 billion or greater, that strikes us as having our kind of qualities and the price is right and everything, we will buy. Zone 5.
Hi there. Lee DeBroff, longtime shareholder, I think going back a number of years now to when it was a little more intimate affair. Not quite sure whether I should look at you in the TV here or in real life on the stage, but anyway, I'm on the very right of you. And I see all the guards around you, and I see all the security and that sort of thing, and then I see this offering of the Class B, and I sort of wonder whether, from your perspective, you feel you might be in the same boat that the Pope and the President are. And I mean this absolutely sincerely, because I don't think that you have perhaps as good a handle as some of us do on the renown that you carry outside of Omaha, Nebraska. People who have no idea what investments are about are fully aware of who you are. And when they see this offering, I think you may find that there are substantially more people who are interested in just having a piece of you for the sake of saying they have a piece of you than having absolutely any idea what they're doing. And I noticed that I try to read the fine print here, on page 14, first paragraph, second line, you indicate some 50 million shares of Class B common stock may be offered. And so I'd like you to comment on this situation that you find yourself in, where you may be perhaps out of touch with the popularity that you have.
Well, my first reaction, maybe I should tell my barber we could save the clippings and sell them. I don't think it's quite as extreme as you say, but in relation to the 50 million first, we have to authorize enough shares, because we are going to allow every share of Class A, or present common stock, but the Class A to convert to B. So we have to have the shares authorized to take care of 30 times the present almost 2 million shares. So 36 million shares in effect are reserved for the present common stock, and as long as we were authorizing it, we need that much, or we wouldn't have the shares actually available if everybody came around to convert. That's not going to happen, but we still have to be prepared for it. We have no plans to issue a lot of shares. But the point you mentioned, which I think you stressed a little more than I would have, but that is what we were worried about in terms of the unit trust. There are people that think that it can all happen again from this kind of a base, which is mathematically a joke. And Charlie and I would settle for one whole lot less, right today. And we have done everything we can. I mean, if we hadn't done this, the unit trust would have moved forward, and I think they would have cashed in on that phenomenon you suggested. And in a few years, it would not. I would have been in a somewhat different position, because people can get very disillusioned if they have hopes that aren't realized. And we have done everything possible, I think, to filter out those who might have an unrealistic belief. And everyone should read a prospectus before they buy shares. And I think we've designed what we're doing about as well as we can to moderate that phenomenon you're talking about. There may be a few come in, but not too many. Charlie, do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, if we only issue the amount we're now talking about is sort of a non-event around Berkshire. Be 1% or
Yeah, it's
something
1%,
like that of the. It solves the problem of these disreputable followers, and 1%, what does it matter?
You heard that remark. We were referring to Charlie earlier about all I want to know is where I'm going to die, so I'll never go there. Well, we think about that in terms of we believe in reverse engineering, and how do we keep people from buying it who really are going to be unhappy, a few years later. It's a little like singing country songs. You should sing them backwards. That way you get your home back and your auto back and your wife back.
I'm Joe Condon from London. Both Mr. Buffett and Mr. Munger have addressed my question in annual reports and at previous meetings here. This is my first time. It has to do with investment in a few great high technology stocks. I know your answer has been that if you don't understand it, and I can't, after this performance, can't really believe that both of you don't understand most of the high technology questions. But I'm thinking about not only Microsoft, but say Pfizer and J&J, all three companies which have already proven that not only do they have a great product, proven management over 10 to 15 years, great market share positions, which are not easy to get into. And I frankly don't see a big difference in the PE ratios, for example, if you say Coca-Cola, or against Johnson & Johnson or Pfizer, which are very powerful companies. I wonder if either or both of you would address that question again.
Charlie, why don't you?
If you have something you think you understand that looks very attractive to you, we think it's smart to do what you understand. If we'd been unable to find companies, we well might have been in the to it. We don't sneer at it. Other people with more talent have found that a wonderful course of action.
We generally look at businesses. We feel change is likely to work against us. We do not have great ability. We do not think we have great ability to predict where change is going to lead. We think we have some ability to find businesses where we don't think change is going to be very important. Now, at a Gillette, the product is going to be better 10 years from now than now, or 20 years from now than 10 years from now. You saw those earlier ads going back to the Blue Blade and all that. The Blue Blade seemed great at the time, but the shaving technology gets better and better. But you know that Gillette, although they had that little experience with Wilkinson in the early 60s, but you know that Gillette is basically going to be spending many multiples the money on developing better shaving systems than exist now compared to anyone else. You know, they got the distribution system, they got the believability. If they bring out a product and they say this, they got the distribution system, they got the believability. If they bring out a product and they say this is something that, when they said to women to look at it, in the shaving field, they wouldn't have that same credibility someplace else, but in the shaving field they have it. Those are assets that can't be built, and they're very hard to destroy. So change, we think we know in a general way what the soft drink industry or the shaving industry or the candy business is going to look like 10 or 20 years from now. We think Microsoft is a sensational company run by the best of managers, but we don't have any idea what that world is going to look like in 10 or 20 years. Now, if you're going to bet on somebody that is going to see out and do what we can't do ourselves, I'd rather bet on Bill Gates than anybody else. But I don't want to bet on anybody else. I mean, in the end, we want to understand ourselves where we think a business is going. And if somebody tells us the business is going to change a lot, in Wall Street they love to tell you that that's great opportunity. They don't think it's a great opportunity when Wall Street itself is going to change a lot, incidentally. But it's a great opportunity. We don't think it's an opportunity at all. I mean, it scares the hell out of us because we don't know how things are going to change. We are looking, when people are chewing gum, we have a pretty good idea how they chewed it 20 years ago and how they'll chew it 20 years from now. And we don't really see a lot of technology going into the art of the chew, But, so that. As long as we don't have to make those other decisions, why in the world should we? I mean, if I had all kinds of things we don't know. And so why go around trying to bet on things we don't know when we can bet on the simple things?